everybody. So I'm calling this meeting to order on March 11th at 7:01 p.m. of the Center of the City Council of the Commons. So I'm going to be facilitating tonight. I sent this out to you earlier, but I'll be facilitating tonight until we choose a chair. And it really is up to you. We'll talk about this more later, but it is up to you whether you want to choose a chair tonight or if you want to wait to get to know each other a little bit more. So that's something to think about. But again, we'll get to that a little bit later in the agenda. So for now, I'm just going to do roll call. We'll be doing introductions in a moment. So right now it's just me calling out your name and you saying here if you are here, which I think everybody is. But for the sake of formality, Alice Ralph.
Here.
Jennifer Cornell.
Here.
Camilla Lizundia. Is that, please tell me how to pronounce your name.
Yep, you got it, Lizundia. Here.
Okay, great. Adam Zemke. He's
on mute.
Doing 2 Zooms at once, I think. So I think he'll be joining us in just a moment. Jeff Henney.
Here.
Alan Haber.
Here.
Frank Wilhelm. Rita Mitchell.
Here.
Stephen Borgsdorf.
Here.
Did I get that pronunciation right?
You did, thank you.
All right. Sarah Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Great. And did I get your name right?
You did.
Okay, good. And then Councilmember Hayner.
Here.
And Councilmember Briggs.
Here.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. So oath of office, typically everyone does an oath of office at the first meeting verbally, but since we're in this virtual world, everybody had to sign it electronically beforehand. So everybody's done that. But for those of you who are members of the public, just so you know what the oath of office says, it is, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office stated below according to the best of my ability. So that's what everybody pledged that they would do. So that brings us up to the approval of the agenda. And I know that there's 2 items that people want to add to it. And one is one that Jeff wants to request, I believe, still. So if you wanted to make that request, please go ahead and do that.
Well, I was hoping that there was an opportunity to sort of walk through the presentation we sent out a little bit earlier. It's kind of a context for people to be aware of the work that we've done. It's not prescriptive or anything, or we're not trying to impose anything. I just want to tell people what we've done leading up to this point.
Could I ask who we are?
Oh, sorry. The initiating committee of the Ann Arbor Community Commons. It's a group that, and I was going to explain that in the presentation, that emerged out of the task force. A number of us were kind of advising the task force or on the task force. And when the recommendations, when the the recommendations were made to the council, which the council accepted, we then sort of got together and started to try to make things happen a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know the, oh, go ahead.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I also wonder if, are we going to follow parliamentary procedure even though we don't have an
we are, yeah. So I'm going to ask for a motion to add these items to the agenda in just a moment.
Well, and usually you make the motion before the discussion is all I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
And then the other request is to put a discussion on about when we're meeting, because Adam Zemke unfortunately has a conflict, it turns out, for all of these meetings. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later if we can move the meeting. So is there a motion to add the presentation of the updates of the initiating committee?
I would move to add both those topics to the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I would second it.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry to be so picky, but a point of order is that we should have moved the approval of the agenda and then gone to the amendments. Next time we can do that.
Thank you.
I move the approval of the agenda.
Thank you. With the amendments, proposed amendments.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Where are we gonna put it on there? Like 8, 7C, or 7, 6B, or where is it gonna be on the agenda?
For the presentation, I think we should move that towards after 8, if that's okay with everybody.
Next steps.
Works for me. I'm
Sure.
fine with that.
8D.
And the topic about the next meetings can come last, right?
Right, yeah, we can do that for next steps. And I apologize, I'm trying to take minutes while I'm facilitating this. So I'll just need a moment to type things up here and there. Okay, great. So with that, then I just want to move on to doing introductions. So if we could just do a round robin set of introductions, and if you could just say who you are, since this is our first meeting, I'd like people just to get to know each other a little bit better. So who you are, maybe a little bit of background about yourself, and then why you wanted to be on the Council of Commons. So I'm just going to call your name off just so it's more orderly, and I'm going to pick an order of who's on my screen. And Alan Haber, you are up first.
I'm Alan Haber. I live on 3rd Street. And I've been, I'm 84 years old. I moved to Ann Arbor in 1936 at 6 weeks. I'm a local, though I lived 25 years in the Bay Area. So I bring that experience with me. I've been an advocate for the Commons, and I met Alice Ralph in the Labor Day picnic in 2009 when RFP 743 was out as to what should happen to the library lot. And we jointly put together the notion of an Ann Arbor Community Commons, A2C2. And it took a long time for that to come to fruition, but here we are. And the first time I spoke on that at the City Council as a peace activist, I said, in reference to the UN resolution, that this land should be used for the creation of a culture of peace and nonviolence for the children of the world. That is a common mission for all humanity at this time. And the commons is, in a sense, that sense of people cooperating and sharing and caring and healing. And so I have persevered in this, and I keep doing it, and I'm very glad to meet other people. And I think we can put our heads together and exceed expectations. There's a lot of controversy about this, but there's also a tremendous amount of goodwill and knowledge. And this sense of commons and commoning is developing all over the world, just as the crises of the world are also developing. So this is very important, not only to create a heart for Ann Arbor, but also to engage Ann Arbor in the transformation that we need in the whole world toward a more sustainable, harmonious, caring place. So that's me. You'll hear more about this. I persist. Is that enough?
That's enough. Thank you, Alan.
I can
Great.
definitely go on, but
I know you can. All right, Councilmember Briggs, you're next.
I just got a call. I had to turn that off.
Very good. So as you probably know, I was just elected to City Council in November. So I am a newbie on council, but I've been in Ann Arbor for about 20 years and actually lived a couple of stints in Ann Arbor. First moved here when I was 5 and then moved away a little bit. Came back when I was in my early 20s, have a couple of kids. My background is working on, I currently work as executive director of Scenic Michigan, so have a lot of interest in building beautiful communities. And I've also lived and traveled extensively across Europe and Asia, and so I really understand and appreciate the importance of public spaces, and how sometimes we can learn a lot from other places in the world and bring that here. So I'm excited to be a part of this group and moving this vision forward.
Thank you. All right, Camilla, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Camilla. I am an urban and regional planning graduate student at the University of Michigan. I've been an Ann Arbor resident for the last 5 or so years now. And I wanted to join this committee because I think it's an excellent opportunity to get involved with local politics in a city that I care deeply about. And I also hope to share a student perspective with the group.
Great, welcome. All right, Tom, I know that everybody knows you, but if you don't mind just saying a quick little something about yourself.
Oh, I don't think everybody knows me. I'm Tom Crawford. I'm the city administrator. I've been in the position for about a year, but I've been in the city for about 25 years. Live on the west side and have a couple of young children.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Hayner.
My name is Jeff Hayner. Let's see, I moved here in '83 to go to school, and I almost lived here the entire time since. Went away for a couple of years for a job and came back, and I've been on council since 2018. I have been around and interested in council things and what's happened with the city for a while, long enough to remember the old common things efforts and so on. And I've kind of known some folks here a while at the table and some not so long. I'm interested in environmental issues, land use issues, arts especially. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to having this be something. It's been a long slog to get it to here, and everybody I've talked to is excited about it in some way or another. And I could feel there just has been a lot of positivity around it when I've been asking people and saying, hey, this is starting to wind up now. And I do a lot of work downtown. And so I know a lot of downtown business owners are excited about the opportunities for this whole block to be kind of reimagined and reconsidered and serve the community in better ways. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens here. It's been kind of exciting, and it's really an exciting opportunity, as some people have said. And so I'm just really glad to be a part of it. So
Great, thank you. All right, Jennifer, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I have worked in Ann Arbor for 20 years. I've lived here for the last 5. I am the Senior Vice President of Marketing, Communication, and Events for Ann Arbor Spark. So I had told Councilmember Briggs that I look at that lot every day out my window and have for several years. So I have a personal interest in that. And I also have 2 young daughters who are 7 and 9. Live on the west side. They go to school here. I always tell them to, put your heart and your effort into the same place. And this is, for me, a deeply personal way that I can do that for them. And I also serve on the board of the Ecology Center. So very interested in green spaces, parks, the environment. And, obviously when I'm at a board meeting for the Ecology Center, I stare out at that space as well. So I'm an avid runner, and I'm very much looking forward to working with all of you. This is a really exciting opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Frank, you're up.
Frank, you have to unmute. Frank, you need to unmute or get closer to your microphone.
Unmute. Unmute.
There we go. There we go.
Well, that was a nice introduction. I'm Frank Wilhelm. I'm over on the west side of Ann Arbor. I still don't feel like a townie, even though I've been here for about 55 years. But I come from an orientation of history, preservation. I've been an avid student of local history, Ann Arbor, Dexter, and so on. Early in my career, I was director of the State Historical Society, and in that role, because it was based here in Ann Arbor, I served as a board member and then chairman of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission in the 1970s. One of my most vivid memories is helping preserve 3 or 4 buildings on West Liberty, just west of Main Street. A previous administration, Tom, way in the past, thought that those buildings should come down for 22 more surface parking spaces. So parking has been an issue for a long time. We convinced them that they should not do that, and this is the old West Side Bookstore and the Ann Arbor Art Association buildings. I'm pleased that, not to my effort, but efforts that followed me in my time, we have now 14 historic districts protecting over 1,800 structures in Ann Arbor. Occasionally, we lose a historical asset and we have to restore it. And that's, we lost the courthouse square around the county courthouse in the early 1950s. And I view, through my historical lens, this is a reestablishment of the town square, the center of the city, park and commons. So the question I answered, Heather, the second one was, what do I bring to this work? And it kept coming back to the word determination. I feel like not only mine, but our committee, our council really has the assignment of fulfilling the directive of the voters who passed Prop A that dedicated the public land on this block for forever as a urban park and civic commons. It's been 28 months since the passage of Prop A. I think it is time to begin to take tangible action to establish this park. As Jeff has mentioned, and I've had the same experience, people are looking forward. And I think part of it is what we've been through for the last year. We're looking for ways to come together and for common benefit, for mutual support, an open space in the center of the city. I keep asking myself and others, what great American city, and we are an all-American city, I think, doesn't have a center. We don't. We really have to have it. The voters have said we want it. And I think tonight we're starting the process to accelerate that achievement. So thank you very much. I look forward to our work.
Thank you, Frank. All right, Sarah, you're up next.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Hammerschmidt. I actually grew up in East Lansing, but I saw the light and I came to U of M in the late 90s for undergrad. I then left for about 17 years. I spent a lot of time in Austin, Texas. I moved to San Francisco for about 2 years, and then about 3 years, I think, in Washington, D.C., where I had a set of twins in late 2016, and we decided to move back to Michigan to be closer to family. So I've been back in Ann Arbor for, I guess it'll be 4 years this fall. I live on the northeast side in Ward 2. I work for the Urban Land Institute out of our DC office, which is an education and membership organization for the real estate development and land use community. My work broadly looks at how our built environments can be better designed to improve public health outcomes and equity. And right now, for about the past 2 years, I've been leading our work on access to parks and open space. Last summer, I actually released a report on transforming automobile-oriented infrastructure, including parking lots, into parks. It's called Pavement to Parks. And I also serve on the City Planning Commission. So I am the Planning Commission liaison to this council, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful.
Terrific.
Wow.
Welcome.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome.
Okay, Alice, you're up. You need to unmute.
Unmute. Unmute.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I watched everybody else mute and unmute, and then I didn't do it. But I did get my hand raised. I don't know why that is. Everybody's taken a lot of different tactics in introducing themselves. I was born in Louisiana, but my family then moved to Texas, and then I graduated after a few years in Oklahoma from what we used to call Normal, Oklahoma, but it's Norman. And it was facetious because there's nothing normal about it. And the reason I bring that up is that there are surprisingly a lot of parallels between Norman and Ann Arbor. It's, Norman would be the Austin of Oklahoma or the Ann Arbor of Michigan or, something like that, university towns. So that's been a kind of a common thread, even through my adult life, because I worked for a college textbook publishing company based in the Midwest. And so I had a big travel territory, and I've been to a lot of other university towns. That job led me to, I met somebody who ended up in Ann Arbor, and I then had the opportunity to move to Ann Arbor, and that was about 45 years ago. So since moving to Ann Arbor, I got an architectural degree. I became a licensed architect. I worked mostly in historic preservation and urban design, and that's sort of how I ended up in a lot of these different things. Most, in the last 2 decades, I got involved with the Greenway movement, and oddly enough, that kind of led to a number of things like running for city council and almost in a 29 vote race. It was when things were cheaper and the votes were closer. But I ended up appreciating the fact that I came so close, and a very exciting and life-changing attempt, I guess. Made a lot of friends and learned a lot about how government works and the city needs of the city and the things that we can do to make our city the way we want it to be. So the Greenway took a long time, and along the way, this parking structure got built, and there were a lot of people talking about public land for public use and all of the land use things, including zoning and so forth, a lot of development. So all of my interests sort of collided with the events of the last 2 decades. And that's how I came to be at that same Labor Day meeting that Alan was at. And I asked Saber Briere, who was council member then, hey, shouldn't there be a public proposal for this public property? And so Alan and I started talking, and then that resulted in my writing and putting together all of the ideas from the community and from our discussions and from the history that Frank mentioned, that we don't have a city green, a lawn on the courthouse lawn. We don't have a lawn around the courthouse anymore, where all of these historic events happened. And so that's, that proposal that I wrote and put together with all of the input from everyone, that still sort of drives me to accept the request from others to join this committee. And I'm really appreciative of having been appointed. It's been a rough year for everyone, especially for me. And because that's someone that I met that brought me to Ann Arbor is now passed away. So I just wanted to mention that because there's a whole lot of context. And I think it's important that we realize how human we are in all of our endeavors. And we can broaden that feeling for each other to making good works.
Thank you, Alice. I appreciate you sharing all of that. All right, Jeff, you're up.
Oh, hi, Jeff Henney. I came to Ann Arbor about 35 years ago from the UK, and I had a robotics and AI company in the UK, and the state of Michigan invited me to come and take a look at Ann Arbor because I was looking for a US headquarters. I'm actually an American, but I was living in Europe and I had grown up there and went to school in Europe as a kid. But I wanted to get to the United States, and Michigan offered me an opportunity, provide some funding to bring my company here, and so I did. And eventually I sold the company and did some consulting, and then eventually wound up working for the University of Michigan as the founding director of biomedical technology transfer at the medical school. They asked me to create an office that would do that. And so got very interested in all the issues of how you get inventions and technology out of, the research into the community and into the world, into commercial world. I was educated in Europe, as I said, but also in California. And I happened to be at the University of California, Berkeley, when People's Park and all the other things happened. And so I think I was permanently turned into a bit of a liberal at that point. So Ann Arbor suited me very well when I wound up here. And also I had some interesting stints. I really wanted to learn a lot after I left Berkeley and had a bit of a radical economics background. I wanted to learn about the other side of things. And so I went to work for a multinational called Shell International Petroleum Company, and handling their LNG projects in the Far East. And on the flip side, I ran 8 programs for the World Council of Churches in Bangladesh, sort of to balance that out. So I've been on a kind of magical mystery tour to some extent. But getting back to Ann Arbor, I got here and was very impressed and have loved the experience. Have stayed here ever since, by the people here, the ideas, the quality of the people, and the civility most of the time people treated with which people are treated, and also the cosmopolitan nature of it, but having basic values that are enduring. The thing, though, that I did notice was that there really wasn't a heart to the city, and I felt there was so much more that could be done with all these talented people. And I'd always been interested in economic development ever since I had done these aid and development projects in Bangladesh. And so, I started to pay attention to a lot of this. And in fact, I did a stint as a trustee of the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, and ran some development and aid projects down in Detroit, working with the Episcopal church down there, Church of the Messiah, with a very charismatic pastor down there. And we were working on trying to get the community developed and developed in an environmentally sound, sustainable way, and making the community sustainable, which involved local small businesses and so forth, developing those. And so I really got the bug, and I got the Episcopal Diocese to put some investment into all that. And then I wound up becoming a professor at a small college, business college called Cleary University. Some of you may know it. It's in Howell, Michigan. They had a branch here in Ann Arbor for a long time. And I wound up being the professor of sustainability, economics, and business studies. And I kind of was asked to rewrite their whole curriculum for the 21st century, which I did with some colleagues, and focused it much more on sort of new models of new economies, and more sustainable economies, and business operating in that kind of context, and teaching students about those kind of issues. And so I've been there now for quite a number of years, but in the process of investigating, economic models, I engaged a lot with some commenting efforts going on in places like Belgium, the Ghent program to turn Ghent into a commenting city, in Barcelona and a number of other places where they've really tried to bring another dimension to the life of urban environments beyond just city government and the private sector and disparate kind of nonprofits, but to have a third stool, which is this commons, this idea of managing shared resources but people, the users actually managing shared resources, and with a big focus on having heart or the center of the city kind of ideas, the public square, the library, the community sharing and helping out and providing services. So I began to look into what was going on with the effort here to get the center of the city, the park and so forth. And I got a hold of Alan Haber, and that was my undoing because I became enamored by his thinking and ideas, and hopefully brought some to him. And we've been I've been his wingman ever since. And so we developed this. I was advising him a little bit on the task force, and Heather had to deal with that. She dealt with it very well. And I think we came up with some useful things, which I'll talk about later. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Rita, you are up next.
Hi, thank you. I'm Rita Mitchell. I am a long-term resident of Ann Arbor for about 40 years, continuously. I have lived almost all my life in Michigan, except for 5 years in Maine. My background is I initially had a speech pathology degree. I worked in clinical work, and then I got a public health degree and worked in more administrative kinds of things in health. I credit my family with a long-term environmentalism that I think is rooted in growing up rural and loving having green space and access to it. And I'm currently on the Environmental Commission serving, and I'm very happy to do that. And I've been interested in this project because I think there is something that we can all gain from having some open space that has some green to it in the center of the city where people can gather. So I'm looking for us to foster the development of a welcoming space, one that's really interesting and fun, that people want to visit. And I just want to also point out that I first met Alice and Councilwoman Briggs in my work on the Greenway. So the Greenway has been a long-term thread in the community, and I appreciate the kind of activism that it brought out in me to get involved in working in the community, and kind of a demonstration that some projects take a long time. I'm hoping that we can move this forward as a group, and I'm impressed with everyone's story that you've all shared, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Rita. All right, Stephen, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Good to meet you. My name is Steve Borgsdorf. Ann Arbor local yokel, I guess, born and raised. Everything I need to know, I learned from Northside Elementary School. Despite that, I guess my education continued from there. I went away. I never went to Michigan. I never went to University of Michigan. Went to Kalamazoo College, and then came back as my now spouse was getting her master's here at the School of Public Health, and then went away to Wisconsin for law school, but then came back again, and have been practicing lawyer. I was at in Dykema, which is one of the big Detroit firms, in their Ann Arbor office for 10 years. Now I work for Robert Bosch, big manufacturing conglomerate company. You may have their dishwashers or power tools or spark plugs or other whatnot. I'm in the legal department there. I've been there the last 6 years. I remember when Ross Perot was running for president, and his vice president candidate, Admiral Stockdale, enters the debate. And who am I? Why am I here? I always wanted to include that in an introduction. Why am I here? I am the liaison for the Parks Advisory Commission. I've been serving there for several years. I hope to bring to this discussion maybe some of those sort of how those conversations go in terms of how we assess public space, some of the questions that we would ask. I've had the pleasure of serving with Councilmember Hayner on that for many years. I live here. It sounds like we got a lot of old West Siders on this thing. I'm no different from you. I'm here in my house on Liberty. Mr. Haber, I remember way back at the Old West Side Neighborhood Association, we would have the fall forum political discussions, and judge candidates or various local offices would be filled. And I would often moderate those for the Old West Side Association. I've been on, let's see what else, been on the board of Community Action Network for many years in the past, and also at the Ann Arbor YMCA board. But now I guess my way I keep out of trouble is being on the Parks Commission. So great to be here and work with everybody. I'm really looking forward to this because I've been living in the community during the whole time that all these conversations have happened. It's been instructive for me to get the material and really see the result, right? How many words and ideas and sort of the ethic behind all of the energy here for what's going to go in this space. And I'm really looking for, because as I understand it, this is like the kinetic energy committee, right? We're supposed to somehow take all those ideas and turn that into something that's actually there. So really looking forward to it, and it's good to meet everybody.
Well, thank you. I like that idea of being the kinetic energy committee. All right, Adam, you're up.
Thank you, everyone. And I apologize for being without video for the first few minutes. I had a conflict at the start of this, but pleased to spend the rest of the evening with all of you. Adam Zemke, I grew up in town here. I'll have to argue with some of you as to which elementary school is the best, I think. I'm a proud Hazley alum and graduated from Pioneer and went to Michigan State for 2 degrees in mechanical engineering, undergrad and master's. Proud Spartan, but love Ann Arbor. This is a beautiful town, one of the best towns in Michigan, if not the best. And was excited to move back here in 2010. Got involved in local politics a little bit, served a short stint in the Michigan House of Representatives, representing a portion of Ann Arbor City and several of the townships surrounding the city. Really passionate about educational improvement and providing for a high quality public education experience, really the promise of public education for all kids, and very, very passionate about educational equity and racial equity. So I now run a nonprofit coalition called Launch Michigan, which is made up of philanthropy and educational organizations, labor unions, and business groups who all share that same equity mission as I do. And so I have had the pleasure of doing that for a little over the last year after I left the legislature. And lived downtown for a good time that I've been back to Ann Arbor. Lived in a couple of different lofts downtown, and then last year my wife and I purchased a old home. I guess maybe it's new old by Ann Arbor standards, built just after the turn of the last century in the Old West neighborhood, now known as Water Hill to some. It's actually only a few blocks. I was excited about this for a variety of reasons, other than the fact that I'm a big old home and history buff. It's only a few blocks away from the house that my great-grandparents built in the 30s on Spring Street. And it was the place where my grandfather started his business that supported my family for about 100 years. And so it's neat to be close. And so excited to be part of this. I was particularly pulled at my heartstrings to hear Alice and both Alan talk about the lawn that the old courthouse was on. That was something that I've studied as just a history buff for a while. And so it's particularly exciting to hear some of you talk about some of that old Ann Arbor history and the importance of the gatherings there. So I'm just honored to be here, excited to be part of it. I guess the other thing I do as well is I started a small business after I left the legislature, or actually just prior to my leaving the legislature, called the Ann Arbor Scooter Company. We have a location downtown at the corner of William and Maynard, and I'm excited about put my engineered hat on, and excited about different types of mobility solutions that are a little more environmentally friendly, less congestive, and helping to further that movement as well. I love the opportunity to serve here. I feel like I look at this from the perspective of opportunity. I feel like the voters gave us a chance to really envision something unique and exciting with the passage of this proposal, and I'm excited to be a part of that. I very much want to see it done and done well, and really live the vision that was put forward in the task force report. And so excited to work with all of you and look forward to spending a lot of time to do it right. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. Well,
Heather, I don't remember you saying anything, and you are an important voice for the city and have your own history with this this effort. Would you mind sharing yours?
Sure. So my name is Heather Seiferth, and I am an urban planner in the systems planning division of the city. So that's different than our planning department. Systems planning is a group that's made of people from different disciplines in the city so that we can look at things a little bit more holistically. I focus mostly on planning projects like the tree line. Many of you are probably familiar with that. And then this project. And then I do a lot of community engagement. My background is I started off in the world of sociology and then moved on to urban planning after that and studied both urban planning and social work at the same time. So I got into urban planning really with a focus on people. I really truly believe that our built environment and our natural environment as well can have a deep, deep impact in who we are and who we can become. So I think we need to go into planning our communities very thoughtfully. Most of my career I spent in the nonprofit world. I worked for a nonprofit up in Traverse City for a number of years that my job was focused on helping jurisdictions get over their past disputes. So townships, cities, and villages get over whatever they were arguing about, which there's a lot to argue about. It was usually annexation or water extension or something like that. So to get over that, and that's where the social work part comes in, and then move on to any sort of planning project that they wanted to, as long as they were willing to work together. So I traveled all over the state doing that for a number of years. After that, I moved back to Ann Arbor and worked at a place called Clean Energy Coalition. So that was focused on clean energy and solar stuff, the EV plan for the state, the EV readiness plan for the state, and other things related to that. And then I went into the private sector. So did that for a couple of years, consulting with different communities, working on master plans and other things, and then came to the city of Ann Arbor. So now I've worked in the sectors, and I really enjoy being here in Ann Arbor. It is where I live. I like just finally settling in on a community and really focusing and seeing what we can do here. And, you know, as you all know, we have, I mean, you can see from the people here tonight, we have an impressive community, a lot of people who've done a lot of things, who are interested in doing a lot of things, a very active community, very engaged community. So it's been really exciting to me. I've just been at the city for 3 years now, just thinking about and working with other colleagues, dreaming up and taking action on where we can take the city next. There's a lot. We're at a time and place where there's a lot that we need to be doing and a lot that we can do. So I'm really excited to be working on the sustainability stuff that we're doing, the public engagement efforts that we're doing, equity that we're focusing on. So anyway, that's my background.
Great.
All right, so with that, welcome everybody. And again, what an impressive crew that we have here. So let's see, where does that lead us? Where are we at in the meeting? So meeting overview. So this meeting is really, as you can see, it's kind of the get to know you meeting. What are we purpose? So kind of getting us grounded in that. I do like to have ground rules at my meetings. This is something that you can take forward. You can come up with your own set of ground rules, but for now I'll read off the ones that we used at the Center of the City Task Force, and you can think about whether you want to going forward in these meetings. The first ground rule is to plan to start on time and end on time. With those meetings, we did set it at a specific time limit that we were going to meet. That's an option for you to do here. Respect others, remember the dignity of each individual. As Alice had said before, we are all human here, and I think that's just something we need to come back to always remembering. There are going to be moments, I'm sure, where not everybody's going to be in alignment with what they want to do, but we have to be kind together to each other, and as we figure out, you know, how we're going to move this project forward. Critique ideas, not individuals. Commit to learning and suspend judgment. look for solutions, listen respectfully without interrupting. And that's a little bit hard in the digital world. I've noticed it's hard not to talk over each other. Sometimes there's a lag time, but do the best that we can not to speak over other people. And then be present, be engaged at these meetings, avoid phone use and other distractions during these meetings. For now, does anybody have any thoughts on those or anything that you would want to add to that?
I think they're excellent guidelines.
Yes, they're very good. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I'll have to come back to it, I guess.
All right.
I think I missed one. In between, after critique ideas, not people, what came next?
Commit to learning and suspend judgment.
Thank
and
you.
I can send these out too.
They worked very well in the task force. You had them up on the wall, so we saw them at every meeting. And basically, it's humankind be both.
Yeah, I did remember we're talking about ground rules, and they're nice. They're good foundation for any kind of exchange. And back to parliamentary procedure, which is one of the things that was listed as needing a knowledge of or to perform in a public commission. But there are usually bylaws and rules. And bylaws you can amend through an amendment procedure, and rules you can suspend. And that helps me think of the difference between bylaws and rules. But I have no intention of being a parliamentarian. I just wanted to say that there are different kinds of rules, and I like the ground rules, and sometimes you can suspend the other rules.
Great. Well, we'll stick with these for today. And if you want to adopt them formally later on, feel free to do that. If there's other things that you think of later that you want to add to them or, slightly change, then feel free to think about that and do that.
Please send them out to us all.
I will do that. Okay, so that brings us up to roles and responsibilities. So this gets us into the proposed bylaws. So I guess I'll just start with restating the purpose that was stated in resolution to restate the Council of the Commons, which is resolution 21-044 for those of you following from home, if you wanted to look it up. So the purpose is the Council of the Commons is an advisory body to City Council and the City Administrator that will build upon the work of the Center of the City Task Force by providing written recommendations annually on subjects such as funding needs, an operation and maintenance model, and the role of the Council of the Commons. And so we do have a set of bylaws that our city attorneys put together and sent out today. So you received it at a late hour, basically. And for those of you in the public, it is now attached to the agenda, so you are able to look at that as well. So we're not going to vote on the bylaws today, since you haven't had time to look them over. And typically during, parliamentary practices that you would introduce something and then vote on it at the next meeting anyway. I guess if anyone wanted to comment, and I know that you haven't had a lot of chance or any chance really to look through them, but did you want to talk about them at all right now, or just kind of leaf through it briefly, or do you want to wait for that conversation until next time? Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Yes, well, I think we should go through them a little bit, but deal with them at the next meeting. They're too much of a boilerplate in my view, and that this commenting really involves another form of relationship. So I think we need some deeper look at them. But also in terms of roles and responsibilities, the council also passed the resolution of accelerating this development and recognized the community group called the Initiating Committee that Jeff talked about, which has a role in this, as well as the Library Green Conservancy that since 2012 has been working on this development. and so somehow the parks and planning also have their voice. So somehow the interests that are represented within this, and particularly the continuity of the initiating committee, is somehow some element in our overall process that I want to have acknowledged. It came out of the task force, people from the task force, and then who were added on subsequently. And Jeff, I think, will talk some about what all that, how that all developed. So I think there's more to these bylaws than simply the what comes from the attorney's office.
Councilmember Hayner.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, this is pretty typical for, board and commission type stuff that we have before us. And I guess the only thing that I would say, barring going through them point by point, which might become tedious, is I just ran a quick skim through them because on the agenda, one of the things we're doing is, one of our things is choosing a chair and a vice chair. And I just did my notes and where they speak to the, one thing we could go through is just briefly where they speak to the responsibilities of the chair and the vice chair before we get to that point, maybe. And then the other thing is there was just a few things in there that, I mean, like I could just do it like 7-2, the chair calls meetings, 7-7, they cancel meetings. There are 6-2, they preside over meetings, obviously. 8-1, they help set the agenda with the staff liaison, which is Heather. 8-2, they determine the order of business. And 10.1 is rules are kind of described and followed at the chair's discretion. So those are the big parts of the bylaws that say what the chair's responsibilities are going to be. And then we've also, typically they establish that a quorum is 7 because we're a group of 12. We have an unusual situation there. If we end up voting on something, it could easily be 6-6, which means that it fails because it didn't gain a majority, which is unusual. Usually there's an odd number of folks on a board. And I know that Alan and others have asked that perhaps we do need one more, not to make it an even odd situation, but to have an Indigenous voice be part of our conversation. And so there might be room for another person on this board. And the other thing is that public comment time is in the book set on Rule 712 or Bylaw 712 at 2 minutes, which is what council changed to adopt, but it's traditionally been 3 minutes. So I would certainly have no issue with that being 3 minutes. So that's just my notes and comments on bylaws generally.
Thank you. Alice, did you have something?
Yes, I would prefer not, you said, as you said, the bylaw or whatever it is that got posted at a late hour really did, because I ran off the agenda probably an hour before the meeting and I didn't see that. So I'm listening very intently to what's said about it because I don't have anything in front of me to read. Jeff also brought up the issue of a tie vote. And I think we do need to figure out what we're going to do with that. We could establish a super majority or something like that. I don't know what the options are, but we do need to anticipate that problem. And hopefully we won't have that kind of division. We will be more in agreement, but we need to be prepared for that. And I think that's all I had to say at this point.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I think mine is just more of a point of clarification related to Alan's comment. My understanding was that, I guess, going through and reading the bylaws, I did have enough time with them to be a little dangerous, was that having 2 members of the Community Commons Initiating Committee and 2 members of the Library Green Conservancy Committee present on this group was to sort of bring forward work that had been done in the past to sort of then be able to move forward versus go backward and then work backward forward. So I guess I just want to make sure that that was the purpose of the structure of the committee, was to bring the historical knowledge to the present and us all to move forward. And I don't know if that was a comment or a question, but I guess Alan's comment confused me just for a second. So
from my perspective, I think that's a fair consideration of what the thinking was behind that.
Okay, Rita, you had your hand up, and then Alan has his hands up.
Really minor. When I read over the bylaws, there's one in 710 where there's a word missing. We don't know who's taking the notes.
Oh, you can choose a note taker. I'll just respond to that. You can. So for the meeting minutes, I'll take meeting minutes, but they're going to be straightforward, just just the basics, just the facts, ma'am kind of thing. So if you want some more detailed notes, you could choose a note taker to do that.
Okay, so it just needs some descriptor in there. Thanks.
I think it was Alan and then Jennifer.
Yeah, if I can clarify, the initiating committee is an ongoing group that is ongoing and has all sorts of different projects and is related to this and how much the Council of the Commons, what our relationship is, we sort of have to figure out. I did have one other thought though, on the bylaws, that I think I'd like to see. We've been working with a more consensus process, sociocracy. And I think I'm not so interested in having Robert's Rules of Order being our guidance. I think we should adopt a more consensual process. And I think that besides, as Jeff maybe mentioned, that I want to see this group expanded, and how expansion happens is another question that we are initiating resolution from the City Council. This is the initial membership. I definitely want to see an Indigenous voice from one of the tribal members, part of our group that is a wealth of cultural knowledge of the commons and commoning. So how we expand our membership and how people who are doing work in various aspects of this development are able to participate in the meeting rather than only in the public comment at the end. I see usually there's public comment at the beginning and the end. So I think we need to work on these bylaws a little bit over the next period, and improve them. And also we are in a period where attendance is virtual, as well as at some point it will be actual. But recognizing that we are in a situation of Zoom meetings rather than meeting all together. Though I would like us to find a time, maybe it would be a special meeting and there's way for that where we could actually meet with appropriate masking and social distance on the Commons, Liberty Plaza in the library lot, and walk it over together, sort of have a sense of, well, what are we actually dealing with, and put our feet on the ground. So that would be, I guess, within this framework, a special meeting. But I need some more time to look at the particulars of this. And I think we all will, and maybe we find some significant improvements.
Great, Councilmember Briggs, and then Alice.
Thank you. Thanks for working to get these bylaws to us today. And I think there's, just to speak a little bit to the membership question, I think there's Councilmember Hayner and I certainly had discussions earlier around the benefits that being a body of 12 brings us. I mean, oftentimes in a body like this, there is that potential for a tie-breaking vote, and we may want to figure out a mechanism for that. But this has been a at times divisive issue in our community, and we, acknowledging that up front is important, I think, to moving forward, because I think our desire is to not move forward in a contentious way. And so I think if we find ourselves in a place where we have a 6-6 sort of decision, that might be an opportunity for us to really rethink if we've really come to the best decision for our community moving forward. And I think it gives us an opportunity to pause and maybe consider that issue further. In terms of all the voices that should be at this, I'd love to, in some ways, be able to bring more and more folks in. I think there's a commissions there's a need to put a limit to them at times. I think the public commentary certainly provides an opportunity, but I think it's also instructive that we've got 2 nonprofits that are a part of this body. And this is not the only mechanism and opportunity for people to get more engaged in this conversation. And so the initiating committee and the library Green Conservancy provide those additional opportunities as well for us to be able to further the conversation for our community. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Alice.
Yes, it is my hope too that we, aside from being evenly composed of an even number, we would not. I doubt that with the high interest that we have, that we would come to a situation where we would be that divided. On the other hand, I don't think that this as a public body can really stray too far from the usual framework that we work in as a public body. And that is, we may be striving to create an environment for commoning, but I don't think we can operate as a commoning body. I think we will do better to use the framework in a creative way rather than go as pioneers with a new way of doing business with a city that is unprepared as yet to change to a commoning kind of process. I think that's kind of where I am with that. And commoning can happen anywhere, but it doesn't have to be here. And we may be able to facilitate more things happening if we use the structure that we're provided with, that's provided. So.
All right, thank you. So I think if there are changes that people want to make to the bylaws, my understanding that this is a template that we use, that this is something that's very standard for the city. We don't deviate from this typically, but if you did want to make changes, it would have to go back to the attorney to review again. So just to prepare you that you might have to have a lot of patience with this if you did want to make changes. And so I think going forward, maybe the best thing to do, if you have suggestions, send them to me directly or bring them with you to the next meeting, and we can walk through the bylaws then and talk over the proposed changes. So again, it might not be able to vote on it if there are changes next meeting, because it'll still have to go back to the city or to the attorney to review. But at least we can work through it together that way. All right, is there any more thoughts on the bylaws? Okay. Oh, and then as far as procedure goes, I guess I wanted to comment on that. You don't have to do Robert's Rules of Order, actually. You can choose a different system. There is a system called Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which is based on Robert's Rules of Order, but it's a little bit easier to deal with. So that would be one option to do. And that's something that my clerk's office provided me a write-up on, and I can share that with everybody. So you can look at that and see if that's something that you want to adopt, because it's not quite as rule heavy, I guess, as Robert rules, but it's still following procedure.
I think that should be up to our parliamentarians.
Okay, great. Sorry, did you have something more?
I was just going to say, I think that should be up to our parliamentarian.
Okay. Well, that is a good segue into choosing your chair and vice chair. So choosing a chair, and again, you don't have to choose a chair tonight if you did want to take some time to get to know each other a little bit better, but if you did want to go forward and do that, you can nominate somebody. I do want to remind people that an effective chairperson is somebody that is a skilled facilitator, helps all members feel valued and fosters a culture of respect, acknowledges cultural differences, power, and privilege, and works to achieve equity, keeps discussions on point, diplomatically redirects discussion that is not relevant to the agenda item or an action, understands parliamentary procedure, and then keeps focused on the group's goal and facilitates progression toward that goal. So keep that in mind as you're nominating yourself or somebody else. So I'll just open it up. Does anybody want to have discussion about this or nominate somebody?
Well, I've heard some wonderful things about Adam Zemke, and I haven't had a chance to get to know him or meet him yet, except here at this meeting. But he sounds like he has an excellent background for serving in that function. So I'd be happy to have him nominated. That's just my view.
Is there a second? Or any objection from Adam?
I would second that.
Okay.
Well, if there's a second, then I don't think I can object any longer. But I'm happy to serve at the Walda Group. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't excited about this process. So.
Yes.
Adam, do you feel like there's scheduling, we can work out the scheduling issues that you might have with it?
I hope so. I definitely hope so. Actually, this is actually a very good point. I appreciate you bringing it up, council member. I do have a conflict this second Thursday of every month. So this is probably a very important point, regardless of whether or not you decide to have me serve as chair. But there is a conflict with this meeting at the same time that I have to chair another meeting. So I wanted to actually bring it up for the agenda. I brought it up to Heather earlier today, that if there's a way to choose a different evening, I'm very flexible pretty much every other evening of the week. But the second Thursday of the month is a real problem for me.
So if everybody's comfortable, maybe we should move to that first to talk about the schedule, whether Adam can, fulfill the role of the chair or not.
Well, I guess I'd move that we set that nomination aside on the agenda and let's step forward and talk about our meeting schedules. And then, I don't have any objection to that. You serve as chair whatsoever. I just, perhaps for the, to make it flow, we should go ahead and set this aside temporarily and then move on to discuss our meeting times. I know that there were some polls taken and some other methods were done to come up with this. And I saw, Heather, that you sent out, well, we'll speak to that if that's amenable to everybody. That we move forward.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just take that as a motion to now talk about doing the schedule. Is there a second to do that?
I'll second that.
Definitely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, let's talk about the schedule. So, yeah, we spent some time trying to avoid other conflicts that we have at the city, particularly any other commissions that other people are on. And then with any conflicts with any other meetings that we typically have at night. This one actually does conflict with the Historic District Commission. So if we were moving it to the first Thursday of every month, there would not be any other meeting conflicts that I'm aware of, but I'm wondering if there's going to be conflicts for other people.
That works for me.
I'm sorry. I have on the first Thursday of each month, I chair the Washtenaw County Historic District Commission. However, our meetings start at 5:30, and often we are able to finish in an hour. So that would, as long as we're meeting virtually, I can just switch over. But if we start meeting in person, I'd have to drive from Ypsilanti to get to the next one. So I'd be okay with switching it. It would be a long Thursday night for me, but.
There is the third Thursday, the meetings that I'm seeing up here, if we wanted to not do the first Thursday, the third Thursday, the meeting conflict that I'm seeing is the public market that starts at 5:30. And this is a conflict for CTN to do live recordings. So potentially they would be done in time, maybe, for our 7 o'clock meetings.
I have a conflict with the Ecology Center board meeting and I'm vice chair of that. So
you got to be there.
can't really straddle that line very well and
Mhm.
do justice to both organizations.
Okay.
Just a question, Heather. Is it possible that, well, a couple of questions, I guess. If we were to do the first Thursday, could we move the time to 7:30 to allow Alice a little more leeway? And then also, do we have conflicts with CTN that evening?
There's no conflicts with CTN that evening that I'm seeing on their schedule. So that would be open. Yeah, and you can pick whatever time that you want to start.
The problem with these meetings at 7 o'clock, it's like, I don't know, I guess it was my I'm used to eating dinner about 7:30, so no matter where you put it, it's wrong for me, but I still do it. So I adjust. But.
And everybody's welcome to eat, by the way, if you want to,
That's the
if
last
you feel
thing I wanna
comfortable.
see. I don't think anyone wants to see me eating. But.
Is
Yeah,
there any kind of city? I mean, I know we're sort of, I mean, this is a city board and commission. So is there any kind of city expectation that meetings start at 7? They don't really start later than 7? Or I've never known one to start later than 7. Is why I
No.
ask.
Yeah, no, don't change it to 7:30 for me, because like I said, since I've been chair, our meetings have been much shorter.
And virtually it would work for you now, even though it would be
Right,
one evening.
right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, the only issue I guess that I would be worried about is if we go back to in person and you do have to make that.
Well, we'll
mad
figure it
dash.
out. We'll figure it out. I have a vice chair. They can fill in when I'm not
And
there.
if properly noticed, we could always switch to another night of the week completely, as long as it wasn't a conflict in the future, right?
That's
So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarah, you have.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we actually had this discussion in our last planning commission working session about, can we change the time if we wanted to? And I think we can, especially because we're initiating this now, I think we can pick whatever time we want. It didn't sound like there was any sort of city requirement. Personally, I would be happy with 7:30 if we wanted to do that, or we could just stay at 7. And then if we go back in person, I don't know, I think we could just reassess it.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, we just have to notice it properly, like you said, so that the public is aware when the meetings are.
And I think that when we do our work sessions on Mondays, which are 7 to 9, we have some kind of OMA requirement that we have to stop at 8:45 for public comment. And so if we were to start at 7:30 and we'd say, okay, 8:45 is public comment, even if we have another agenda item before us. And I think I don't know why that is, but that has been as long as I can remember on council around work sessions. I'm not sure if that's really written in OMA or it's just some courtesy that we extend the public. I just want to put
We
that
don't
out
do
there
that.
too.
So it might be a courtesy because we don't do that.
At your work sessions?
Councilmember Henry, that's a council decision for its own body.
Oh, okay.
Ellen, you have your hand up.
Is there a presumption of how long this meeting lasts? Until like the city council, until we're done? And then there's public comment until they're done?
I see one shaking of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that is up to you. You can say we're meeting for 2 hours and no longer, 2 hours or under, or you can say, yeah, we're willing to go to 3 hours.
Well, I don't know how we can end on time if we don't have an ending time.
Agreed.
I just want to say that I think it's wise for us to choose an ending time and to be as succinct as we can for each other's benefit.
I would agree with all the sentiments shared regarding that. It seems like it's really difficult to keep the focus and the momentum of a meeting past a couple of hours. And so, especially in the eyes of the public.
Okay, great. Well, I think it sounds like we have a couple motions if anybody wants to make that. One is for the date and time of the meeting, and then another one would be for the length of the meeting. So if anybody wants to make a motion, or I mean, I guess you can wrap it all in one if you wanted to.
I'll make a motion that we meet on the first Thursday of the month from 7 to 9 p.m.
Second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'm not opposed. I just wanted to make a comment.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I didn't ask for discussion.
Oh,
It's just that I know that, like, you know, if we have quite a few things on the agenda and we say we should, as a vote of the body, of, you know, we could ask the body, can we extend our you know, period so we can finish up this business? I
sure.
don't know what the formality would be, but I think that we should consider that. I think it's right to say 7 to 9 like that. But I think we also say, hey, you know, we got one more thing. Can we just do one more thing and we go till 9:30 or whatever? And as long as it's agreeable, I think we should allow ourselves that latitude. But I appreciate limits.
Okay, so any further discussion?
I would just like to say I've never seen a group of people be able to all agree on a different meeting time so quickly. So wow.
I know this is a small miracle.
Thank you.
Especially ones that are busy with other things.
Okay, so we had the motion and then all in favor. Nobody opposed. All right, motion passed. Congratulations. We're off to a good start. Alrighty, so that takes us back to the chair. And does anybody want to reignite the motion to put Adam Zemke?
I'd like to propose that Adam Zemke be our chair. Make a motion for that.
And then Councilmember Briggs, I think you seconded it.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Any discussion on that?
I do. Just a question, I guess. I was trying to raise my hand, can't figure out how to do it. So I raised my hand. Does anyone else desire the position of chair? I'm just curious if there was anyone who came to this meeting kind of hoping that that would be a role that they might get, or is everyone just as satisfied to, okay, didn't want to have it be unsaid?
In my experience, most people dread it. So, so it's good to have somebody really wanting to do it.
Frank.
Adam, do you have a few words on your behalf? I don't know if you have experience with this. I assume you do.
I would say my experience in this comes from consensus building in government. You know, I had the opportunity to serve in a pretty divided legislature and work on some pretty powerful topics that in some cases did gain some success, and that is really the heart of my experience. I think my passion for applying to be on this council comes from my interest in the city and interest in history, and interest in seeing this issue be a success. And so I'm happy to put my government experience to work if that's the will of the group. And I'm very excited to just be part of the topic.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, great. You're in. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for the nomination. I appreciate it.
Okay, vice chair. Would you like to choose a vice chair? Councilmember Briggs.
I was wondering if Alice Ralph might be interested in serving in that role. She has at least raised some good parliamentary questions today. So I know she's moving from one meeting to the next, and maybe she needs a break.
Well, I would be willing to do it. I'm not as experienced as Adam is, but I do believe in an orderly meeting, but not too rigid to be creative. But so I would be willing if no one else wants to do it. It's the way I ended up being chair of the Washington Historic District Commission because nobody else wanted to do it, but it's my turn. So I agreed that I could probably invoke my vice chair to continue the meeting if I needed to leave for the 7 o'clock. So that would work out okay.
Did the motion get seconded? I want to second the motion.
It has not been seconded yet. So we'll put you down for a second. Okay, any discussion on it?
I just want to say, somebody whose entire career is built around marketing, Ann Arbor is a really great place to live and work and be. It's really interesting and I think exciting to see two completely, passionate people who come at this from a different perspective and different life experience and different, just where their interests lie in this and yet where they converge lead us. This is really cool.
Be careful. Adam's an engineer. I'm an architect, so it may not be so different.
I think born synergies and opposition in that regard with
Yes.
those two characteristics. But
Yes.
I think it's a great idea, Alice.
We are detail oriented, however.
When the architects show up, it's when the jobs get expensive. Said the builder.
Right. We do have some divergent experience. But we all get things done, so.
That's the spirit. Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, all in favor of Alice Ralph as vice chair?
Aye.
Wonderful. Anybody opposed? Okay, great. All right, it's Adam and Alice. Did you want to choose a note taker or any other position tonight? That is something that you can think about. Again, it would be somebody that would take more detailed notes. However, keep in mind, these are being recorded now. This is one of the benefits of having everything virtually, that we can go back to the full recordings at any time, and anybody can. These will be posted.
And my sense is that most of the time, a note taker can be a fraught position in terms of having too little and too much power at the same time, because their notes become in a secondary or a primary, according to the situation. I think it muddies the waters. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, Councilmember Hayner.
Thanks. I'd just comment and say that we had I think we had a note taker for the task. We did have a note taker for the task force, and it added another layer to the minutes approval because we also had to read through those notes and make sure that we feel that we know whatever was represented fairly and so on. I've been on other nonprofit boards where it got, and I don't see that happening here, but you may have experienced this before where it got to a thing where the adjectives used to describe how someone moved an item or whatever was like, what he did this or that. And it's like, what?
Right.
Like, dial it back, note taker, so I just, when we do approve our minutes, I know sometimes minutes of these, that aren't city council minutes where the clerk is there can be very skeletal. And so, we moved these were the items, they were moved and passed, and that's it. And that's okay too. As long as people feel that, we promote it in a way that people can access our meetings and see what we talked about and feel like they belonged as part of that meeting. I think that's the important thing. So that's all. I would definitely do not want to be note taker.
Yeah, and that's another point that I think happened on the task force is poor Hannah. I think she ended up being distracted a lot during the meeting, just having to take notes and couldn't participate as much as she wanted to.
It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair. We all have our own slant on things and the things we want to remember. And we can't take a few notes ourselves. We're in deep trouble.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on from there. Well, congratulations again. Wow, you're making decisions today. Oh, Rita. Yes.
So just on the note taker, is it a requirement or is it
No.
a choice of our body?
It's a choice.
Okay, thanks.
Alan?
I think it was very useful in the task force to have minutes, because notes, because the minutes are so skeletal and it's not clear at all what kind of decisions we're actually making besides carrying through a number of threads of discussion. And we can say that everybody keeps their own notes, but in some way it seems that some record of what are the questions that are being raised and the themes being developed is appropriate beyond the particular decisions being made. Though I recognize that somebody doing that gets their mind distracted too, so I don't know how to deal with it. I have a similar, I mean, it is all recorded. So going back through the record is like doing the meeting again. When did this happen, and so on. We have, so that's what I have to say on the note taker. I have another question about the CTN recording, which I could say now or later.
Yeah, go ahead and ask your question about that.
Well, in the task force, we had the CTN recording, and we had 12 or however meetings, and they cost us $600 or $500 a meeting, and that was the major part of our budget. And so, in some way, it seemed in retrospect unnecessary and too expensive. But I wonder, do we have any budget? And is the CTN doing this because it's a group that they do in their normal work, or are we paying for this out of our budget, and how much? And do we have a budget, which maybe Tom could speak to?
Yeah, I'll put Tom on the spot for this one.
Well, there is I don't know if we would say the commission has a budget, but there is a $20,000 budget for this effort right now for this fiscal year. Much of that will be utilized for staff resources to support the commission. The recordings are a charge. It is an activity we do need to pay for, so it does utilize funds to do that.
Are the funds a kind of sort of a general fund for the city government to record, or is it per commission?
I'm not sure.
Do our meetings come out of our budget and other commissions' meetings come out of a different budget, or is it an overall budget for recording of public meetings?
You know, I actually have to double check that.
I think that's an excellent question.
Happy to get back to you at the next meeting on that, or send you something.
Yeah, I think it would, if it promotes good government and good recording and good, transparency and everything, I think it should be, even if it isn't, a general budget kind of thing, because that is something that every commission needs to have, is a good record of their activities. So.
Well, the recording, I mean, just to be clear, the recording is done by CTN, which is a separate unit. It's not a general fund activity. But
the bill comes to the city.
Well, I want to double check how that works, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
But we're certainly not looking to treat this commission different than every other commission.
Right. Good.
The recording of this meeting could easily be on our website and accessible to anyone and viewed by anyone when the meeting is announced, same as this, as long as we are in this Zoom world.
Are the recordings not only, aren't they on the CTN website rather than our government website?
The recording, so there's two recordings going on. One is through Zoom directly. So we can continue that, though when we go back to in-person meetings, that would be different. We would need CTN to record us versus having it on Zoom. And so with having CTN recorded, it can be also replayed too on the public access channel, in addition to being posted onto the webpage. And then Stephen, you've had your hand up for a while, and then Rita.
Oh, thank you. I was just some clarification with regard to the note taker position. Is there I know we have a chair and a vice chair in the draft bylaws. I didn't see a secretary or other. From whence do the minutes come, the official minutes? Do we elect a secretary? Does the staff liaison take the minutes, or are there no minutes, or what's the?
No, that is me. That would be my role, the staff liaison role, because that has to go straight into our Legistar system, which is really difficult and cumbersome.
So then the question, I guess the discussion around, I'm just trying to clarify for my own understanding. So then the discussion around note taker is that, do we want sort of a role within this commission to take notes that are somehow different from the official minutes, but still capture the discussion?
Exactly. And I asked that because that's what the task force chose to do. They wanted something that was more than just the basic minutes, which is what I do, and more of kind of that capture the conversation.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And the city minutes are very bare bones. This is not much of there won't be capturing discussion in the city minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Similar.
I think there is, I think, many people believe that the minutes are to be descriptive or narrative, and they are not meant to be. They are meant to record actions taken. And so that's where this gets kind of confusing, and where I believe that, because we have so many different interpretations of what happened, we need to take our own, take our own notes so that we can proceed to assimilate all of the different points of view among us. But they really don't, like someone else said, to read through a narrative and say, I think that's not really what I said, but it's how you voted that matters.
Rita, you've had your hand up.
My question is just back to the budget. Will we have a similar amount available for next fiscal year?
That gets decided in May. Toward the end of May, next year's budget is. Okay. I'll be making a recommendation in April, the latter part of April, and then council will vote in May.
Okay, so I assume that something would be recommended then for this group.
Put in for some.
Right.
Yeah, I got an email today from Councilman Rayner. I did see it. Yes. Well, is something going to be in? To be honest, I have not developed a recommended budget yet, and so I can't really comment yet.
Okay.
We could have some input into that recommendation, no doubt.
Well, as a citizen, I guess you can.
You could even take action recommending something.
It would be in the minutes.
That's right. We could vote on having a budget.
Frank, you have your hand up.
I've always felt that what we're about is a partnership, a joint effort between the city and the public-private partnership, and having an amount of money. I'm not going to even hazard a guess what it might be or what it should be, but it has to be substantial enough to attract private support. And that's one of the things I've been working on through the Library Green Conservancy. And so I would encourage us to be a bit bolder than we maybe have been in the past on these kinds of things. I know that these are difficult budget years, but this is an important community endeavor and an asset that we're creating here. And I can tell you that any signal that the city could send that this is actually going to happen, everything from a significant amount of money, I don't even know what I mean by that, or getting the cars off the library lot. So let's move towards signaling to the community this is going to happen. That's going to be a positive influence on private contributions to help fund what will happen on this site. So that's my first fundraising pitch of the season.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think that not only is budget policy, but going back these many, well, 2 decades or more of talking about the use and responsibility of having public land, what we use it for, and how we are stewards of public land. I think it's really important that this being a public property and a public endeavor have a public budget. Whatever that might be, again, as Frank said, we have yet to determine, but it needs to be commensurate with the responsibility that we as the public have to be stewards of the land that we own.
Heather, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I would point out it is very rare for a board or commission to have a budget. I can only think of one actually, but I understand the bit of a unique nature for this this commission. But just to clarify the way things typically work in the city, the boards and commissions, particularly if they're advisory, don't typically have a budget.
I think my comments partly derive from having read this resolution, which I think is a different one from the one that Heather referred to as establishing this group. It puts a lot of burden on this commission, more than what we've been talking about. And so if there's something different about that, that would be less likely to support the expectation of having some kind of money to do what we do, that whatever it is that we do, we have to define. And I guess I can see that requirement.
Frank, you have your hand up?
Tom, I think what I was talking about was funding for the project, not necessarily the council. And maybe that's a different process. But, you know, I think we can debate. Well, this was approved by the voters. I call it a solid majority. If you get 53%, in today's world, that's a landslide. I won't call it that. And I know that that vote did not have an appendix with funding if approved. But I think this is a pretty clear signal that the people of Ann Arbor want this to happen. And the way it's going to happen, I think in its most robust form, is a solid partnership between the city and the people in the community, the private citizens, local foundations, and businesses who will step forward if they have increasing confidence that something of enduring value is going to be created here. So I don't want to, get into a big discussion about funding at this point. It was just to see, I'm having a lot of conversations with people, and it's clear that some people are waiting for a clear signal from the city that this is going to happen in a responsible, robust way.
Sounds like what we went through with the Greenway.
Councilmember Briggs, you have your hand up, and then Rita, you have your hand up.
Yeah, and I guess I just like to draw our attention back to the agenda and note that we don't have necessarily a schedule. We weren't necessarily going to talk about the budget tonight, but just 2 cents, we are going into budget season. So obviously it's important that we're having these discussions and figuring this out in terms of recommendations on that, serving on other boards and commissions. I don't think that there's, my 2 cents is it's not necessarily necessary for our commission to have a budget. I might be able to be swayed on that one, as long as we have some staff support that's reliable, which Heather is. I think the point of this is to be an advisory body and to make recommendations on what sort of budgetary needs are necessary to move the project forward. And so there absolutely will be budgetary needs moving forward, but they may not necessarily be allocated to the commission itself, but to the project and project needs moving forward.
And then Rita.
You're muted.
I think this is, sorry, this is a little bit of budget naivete on my part. Since I'm on the Environmental Commission, I wasn't even aware of the charge given to the recording or whatever, you know, so I think I don't understand then what our $20,000 is applicable to for this year. And maybe that's what, understanding that. I mean, if we have to plan for covering your time, Heather, in this year, it seems like that would be something we would carry forward. But I just feeling a little confused.
Yeah, maybe we need to go back, because I know with the task force, it was a little bit different just because it was a different kind of body that was there for a, you know, set amount of time. And then we were just given a budget to do what we wanted with, and, you know, and we made the choice to have them recorded for transparency purposes. With boards or commissions, and maybe Tom, you know this, or maybe this is something we need to investigate a little bit more. I think it's fairly standard to have them recorded if we can.
Yeah, I'd like us to check on that and get back if we could.
Yeah. Councilmember Hayner.
I would just suggest that we, you know, maybe Mr. Crawford, if we could put on the agenda for the next meeting, just a clarification of how, you know, the differences between the types of, but I think we're talking about two different things here. Like the task force had a budget, like you say, Heather, it was assigned to, you know, to us to get through that business, whatever we had. And this being a board and commission, it's kind of, I think maybe we could put that on the next week's agenda and or next session's agenda. And also maybe part of that conversation could be a greater conversation around, do we want to make a recommendation as a body to city council to say, we anticipate there's some, you know, immediate needs, and let's ask for a line item from city council. Maybe that could be a topic for our next meeting. Not only what is our budget, what are our budget expectations, but should we make a recommendation moving forward to council prior to the budget season, you know?
I think that's great. And with that in mind, I think I'm going to move us along because it's about 8:45. And if we're going to stick to our idea of having this from 7 to 9, we do need to get moving. So if it's okay with everybody, I'll move us on to the next item so we can get through things. So the other things that I just wanted to talk to you about was meeting procedures. So we did talk about that you can choose the kind of parliamentary procedure that you want to do. It doesn't have to be Robert's Rules of Orders, it can be something else. So we'll leave that up to the chair and the vice chair to figure out. Open Meetings Act, I know all of you got something from the clerk's office. So we do have an ordinance that was passed years ago in the city of Ann Arbor that our boards and commissions are subject to the Open Meetings Act. This isn't typical among most jurisdictions, but it is a practice that we do here. And so you do need to adhere to that. So you do have a booklet that describes the Open Meetings Act. So I do encourage you to read through that. We want the Open Meeting Act is in place for things to be as transparent as possible so we can have trust with the community. So business needs to take place in a public setting. So any kind of decisions or deliberations need to take place at these meetings. Again, go back and read that handbook. If you have any questions about it, please do reach out. I think our clerk's office is actually going to put together a training on it. So that might be helpful for people to participate in that if you can. So with that, we're actually up to the presentation that the initiating committee wanted to do. So Jeff, if you can share your screen, let's get that up and moving.
Heather, if I could just interject, we've got a number of people in the comments, public that attend, and it's 8:45 if you wanted to check and see if they wanted to comment or if
sure, yeah, that's a good idea. I was going to wait till after the presentation, but I think it is good since it is getting late. Let's do that now. And then okay, if that's all right with you. Yeah, and then that way it'll give Jeff a little bit of time to get things set up. So members of the public, I don't see that we actually have anybody participating by phone. So if you'd like to talk, then please raise your hand, virtually raise your hand, and that is a feature down at the bottom that says raise hand. And I see Eric Lipson, so I'm going to allow you to talk. Eric, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for the opportunity to address you guys. I'll I have to say, excuse me, I've been involved in this since the sort of the beginning, not as early as Alice, I don't think, but with the Library Green Conservancy and Alan. And I'm pleased to see that I have to say I'm impressed, super impressed by the depth and the breadth of expertise on this group. And not only that, the dedication that I have seen expressed here tonight, showing that you are really looking forward to creatively creating something in this space and to actually make something happen. And I'm also pleased to see that you've got a great representation from staff. Heather, and I know many of you, and Tom Crawford, you've got the head honcho here in the room, and that's also very conducive to actually having something happen and making things happen. And so that's great. There's someone from planning, someone from Parks Advisory Commission. You've got a very broad spectrum here of people, and that's, I think, is excellent, and including someone from a student, so you get some university. I was just totally heartened also by the discussion of the commons and the deep philosophical positions that many of you hold regarding the philosophy behind what the shape of what this great creative opportunity is, you know, what you could do here. So that was also something that I thought I was heartened by. I have to say, you know, one thing is that this is the second or third commission that has been formed, and you know, we want to see, as someone said, this, you guys are supposed to be the action commission. You know, what are we going to actually finally do on this space? Let's get something going. And I think that I'm confident that when you figure that out, that you will figure that out. I think there's so much opportunity for temporary things, for art installations. Alan probably off the top of his head can name 25. And finally, though, I think that it would be great if there was a representative from the Parks Department on this commission, because I do know that they had some qualms about this from the very beginning. And it would be great to get their input and have a direct conduit with this commission and the people in the Parks Department. So those are my only comments. Again, thank you for serving. And as far as the comment that Frank made regarding public participation, I think that's important and excellent. And you can always look at the Campus Martius model in Detroit, where that was a public-private cooperative that has turned out to be an incredible point of focus for activities in downtown Detroit. And I think that we've got the ability to do that, and certainly with the expertise in this room to do something that's the equivalent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. And then I see that Robert has his hand up, so I'm going to go to Robert next.
Can you hear me, Heather?
I can.
I'm Robert Black. I have a long time history with Ann Arbor, starting back in 1979. I've served on many boards and commissions, and I'm a teacher, an architect, and a grandfather, and a bunch of other things. But I want to echo Eric's comments, really, to just say how impressed I am with the diversity and interest of this group, of all of your histories, and all of that together is forming a really powerful alliance, which is what the Commons is all about. I'd like to just suggest something about the past, the present, and the future, that you have already accomplished a great deal in the past. You're building on efforts on the foundation of accomplishments, from the groundwork of the voters' commitment and the original proposition to the City Council's resolution already has created a stand for this project that is publicly viable. And then the efforts of the task force, having those videos from last February, those last two meetings were really powerful record. And the accomplishments of that report was really powerful piece of the foundation and gave you marching orders to continue from here. So that brings you into the present, which is, if you can organize, I would suggest a list of tasks to move you forward in incremental actions that have something accomplished at each step. Right now, I believe you are at the programming phase, which is what Norm Tyler talked about at some of the last parts of the report. You need to program this space, which is what are the physical elements that are agreed to here. You can't just start doing things without having a foundation of a thing like a practical program. And so that talks about the specific physical elements, the quantity and quality of those things, and also at the same time, the relationship between those elements and key relationships of adjacencies to this project. In the immediate sense, it's two key players that are going to impact this project from day one, the Ann Arbor District Library and First Martin Corporation. I'd encourage you to think about that. And so this programming phase is a very important next step. And then as far as the future goes, after that, you will build an alignment with drawing in other members of the community, all the different players in the commons. As Alan said, the indigenous peoples, you may find that since the task force asked for this to be inclusive and welcoming for all, you have to think about what it means to include everyone. And so in the future, you want to engage not only the whole community, but perhaps even have a mini competition with professionals to create some visions that will be very specific to the program, and that they would allow you to create a kind of a budget going forward that will have a vision for the ultimate project, total project cost to build this out, maybe in phases. So that's, I could say more about that, but I'll leave it there. And the last thing I wanted to say, the word "we" is very important here. Many of the early states of the Union of the United States were called commonwealths. I would suggest there's another thing to look at beyond commonwealth, common health, and anything else you might think of. And then speaking of that, I just want to say there's a man who has a birthday in a couple days. His name is Lonnie Rashid Lynn. For those of you that don't know him, he was born in 1972, and he goes by the stage name of Common. He's a rapper. And his phrase is, "Now is our time to change the world." Please do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. All right. Anybody else from the public want to speak? If you could, please raise your hand, your virtual hand that you can see at the bottom of your screen, hopefully, and then I can have you unmuted. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised for now. So Jeff, if you're ready with your presentation, let's move on to that.
Unmute.
No, I just had to maneuver my fingers there. Okay, host disabled participant screen sharing. So can you undisable me or?
Yeah, you're undisabled.
Okay. Again, I'm trying to share, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
You're not as a panelist. Let me see. Let me find you and I will make you a co-host.
Hello, dear. Hi.
There you go. You should be able to do it now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, can you see?
No offense to Mr. Lipson and Mr. Black, but do you want to demote them so they're not panelists anymore?
Can you see now? Mike?
I can. Yes, and I'll do that. I didn't actually promote them, so I'm not sure how they're showing up.
Okay, can you see?
We can. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so this is kind of
Okay, honey. Okay, see you soon then.
the first slide. I'll just go through quickly because the commentators actually said a lot of the good things that I wanted to say, but that's fine. That's great. So this is kind of we try to get across in this presentation the idea, the border and the center and one of the great commenting experts in the world, which I recommend people go consult, is a guy called David Bollier. And he's done a lot of work. He's written a number of great books about commenting and urban commenting in particular, and has advised many of these cities I've dealt with on commenting. And one of the things he says, and this is on our website, imagine a space where everything is shared, a self-organized system by which communities manage resources, both depletable and replenishable, with minimal or no reliance on the market or state. So that's kind of one vision. Personally, I feel that the market and the state can collaborate very well with this third force, the commenting. But anyway, he's written some very great things about this. Pretty much now the history of this, of our initiating committee and the background to this. Community activists created the vision for a green space and supporters kind of got behind it, green space in the town square. There was the Proposal A vote, Center of City Task Force creation. Recommendations were accepted by the City Council. I sent out this presentation, by the way, to every member, and I put in approved, and I understand that wasn't quite accurate. So I just wanted to be clear that it was accepted by the city council. That semantic distinction, I imagine the council members can explain to me, but I leave it at that. Initiating committee was created out of the task force, people who were participating in the task force, and also people who were advising them, to get some energy behind this, to start to try to get ideas and to start to put some thoughts and organization out into the world. And of course, Alan Haber was very important in that exercise. He got me certainly excited to come in and participate, and a number of other people. The city council actually formally recognized the initiating committee as a community partner. And of course, the Council of the Commons was created. So the resources that we're dealing with from our perspective is that we created a community website. It's really a lot of effort went into that. We got some very talented people to put it together on a voluntary basis. And it allows for a lot of community interaction, community outreach, and some project and program planning. And we've been engaging in that so that we can move forward some real outcomes for this initiative. And fundraising, as Frank said, has been the responsibility of the Library Green Conservancy, and they've taken on the role of fiscal agent for the initiating committee and work with us. And Frank has done yeoman's work on this and has actually gotten quite a number of commitments, which if he wants to discuss that at this point, I invite him to do so. And we, of course, developed an advisory relationship with Robert Black, who just spoke. And I think all of us have been very impressed with the work that he's done to encourage us in a broader vision of what this could be from a physical perspective. And he's also understands very well the sort of other ideas we have about commenting that connect in with this. So you had the opportunity to hear a few of his thoughts, and I think it would be great to hear some more. He's working with us as an advisor. He doesn't have a contract or anything like that with us, and doesn't we're not putting him forward as the person that should do anything, but I think he's certainly had a lot of experience with civic projects in Ann Arbor, and has some very creative successes to his background. Here's a kind of slide that shows all the players in the Commons. I mean, there are others, but just to give you a feel for, that this is a community-wide exercise, and that we're all in this together, and we all want to create a new vision, a new idea. Everything from the parks, the AADL, A20, City Council, internal refugees, political activists, everything you can imagine, Indigenous people. Think of it as, our world to some extent. Here's just an image, for some people who haven't actually been here in the group, who haven't been able to visualize what this is all about or where we are. You can see where the arrows are, where the sort of green zone, where the arrow points to an area which we want to develop into a green park kind of environment with other possibilities. Right next to the library, that's the library lot. And of course, Liberty Plaza is another part of this exercise. And there's this whole potential development area which the First Martin Corporation is concerned about. And certainly, as Robert said, it's important for us to get into partnership with First Martin, and of course with the library. And First Martin has expressed strong interest in what we're trying to do. And I think there's a lot of flexibility to do things, especially if we want to have some kind of civic center or civic building. We might want to think about some of the building possibilities beyond just this green zone or the Liberty Plaza, such as the Kemp House and Noble House. We could redevelop some of that and beyond. So just to give you a quick snapshot to remind people, this is an image that Robert very kindly came up with. It has, I put here very clearly, this is conceptual only to create, to stimulate creative imagining. It's not a recommended solution or the actual physical reality on the ground. It's just Robert using his imagination, his experience with Ann Arbor to give us kind of an idea of some of the possibilities. You know, playground area, gardens, outdoor stage, fountain, of course, the water kind of features are very important in a central square in European cities, especially, and in other parts of the United States, and also in Michigan. And, you know, food, outdoor cafe, you know, take a look at this when you look at the document. You know, as I said, I sent it out to you. I won't spend much time on that. We came up with a sort of vision. Again, it's our idea of what this is all about. It doesn't have to be necessarily the Council of the Commons or anybody else, but this is what we would like to imagine we're all about. I'll just quickly read it. The Ann Arbor Community Commons is an evolving new community collaboration framework that facilitates a more caring, quality of life enhancing, sustainable and inclusive Ann Arbor. This framework creates a publicly managed central square plus a green area, the heart of the city. It also generates a positive mutual encounter and assistance interaction in spaces that are both physical and virtual. These spaces are welcoming, always interesting, and fun. The Commons fosters a culture of peace and nonviolence. So that's kind of our ideas. Again, it's not something we want to impose on others. It's how we are conducting our business at this point, behind this kind of vision, and we welcome other people's ideas. Values, again, our ideas about this. Again, it's not cast in stone by any means, and welcome other people's comments and ideas about this. So all city residents are part of the Ann Arbor Community Commons. Every member is of equal worth and importance. Every participant's time is of equal value. Our primary focus is on improving the quality of life for all residents. Our priority is reducing isolation and unmet needs in and through community. Activities occur in mutual respect, benefit, and responsibility. Governance allows global best practices of urban commoning, or I should say follows. So we've got some articles here about what that global best practice is, but you know, there's a lot of great experience out there in the world of doing commoning. And obviously we have to be careful not to go outside our remit, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity to do some exciting new things in the city of Ann Arbor that can be a model for others. What's the way forward? We have some thoughts about that. We'd like to encourage positive and mutually supportive collaboration through the work of the Council of the Commons. We welcome and encourage new ideas from members. We want to ensure an Indigenous voice. A lot of people have said that. Obviously, we want to remove the vehicle parking from the surface of the lot so we can start doing things. We want to work closely with the First Martin, Spark, AADL, and other block partners to expand resources and meeting places. And we want to accelerate the active transformation of the library lot into a central park and commons by hosting events and activities in keeping with COVID-19 protocols. And finally, we'd like to suggest that we invite Robert to the next meeting to kind of share some of his ideas and do a little Q&A with him if that's agreeable to people. I just put it out there as an idea. And I think that's the last slide. So thank you for listening to me.
So I just noticed that we lost both city staff and both of our city council members. They're no longer on the Zoom.
Okay.
I feel like that's our invitation for anarchy.
Okay.
We already elected a chairperson, so there's no way we can't descend to anarchy.
I have some questions, but I don't know if this was just for presentation, and then I know that we're over time, so is this for discussion at our next meeting? Adam, you're in charge now.
Make it up, Adam.
Excellent. I think it's fine to finish wrapping up. I imagine there's a technical glitch here as to why Heather and Tom left us. So I think it's probably a good idea to ensure that we stick around until they are able to get back on here and make sure that we've covered everything that they had intended to. I think it's totally fine to talk casually in that regard. I just want to say thank you for the presentation as well. Jeff. That was excellent and great historical knowledge for those of us who have not been as active historically. Jennifer, if you want to go ahead, that's fine, my opinion.
I guess my question is, I understand that Robert Black has a history with the city that I would just like to understand if we propose things going forward, would we prioritize or somehow look at local vendors, local, people within our community to sort of lift up and bring into this process versus, folks who are out of state or out of the region. Part of this is my bias at Spark. We always want to, it's the idea is that we, accelerate our own economy and our own, peers within our community. And that's just a personal value of mine. If we can keep, resources and ideas and whatnot, and the creativity here first, and then bring in outside expertise, afterward, I think that's great. This is in a really talented community, so I don't know why we wouldn't do that. So that was something that gave me just a minute of head scratching. And I think the other thing is just, how as a new body, when we take these ideas that are already existing and then expand upon them, I'd love to understand, what is our commitment to sort of saying, these are all malleable, these are all flexible, these are, ways that we sort of take what was there and build on, new ideas brought into this new body forward with equal gravity. So I don't know if those are questions or just points of clarification, but two things that came to mind watching the presentation. And Jeffrey, I really appreciate the fact that you brought that forward and gave us time to digest it in advance as well. I really enjoyed looking at it in advance and having a chance to look through it. So thank you.
Thanks. Well, if I could just quickly respond and let Alan and others follow up on the 2 points you raised. Robert's worked here for 40 years as an architect and designer. He happens to be living in I think it's Vermont now, but and his involvement is really in an advisory capacity. We knew him, and he has these great talents, and he achieved these wonderful projects in Ann Arbor. We're not suggesting for 1 minute that he has to be a vendor. He's just advising us, helping us to be a little bit more technically skilled at some of these things, and had some interesting ideas that meshed with a lot of ours, and it helped us flesh them out a little bit better. And he's a very persuasive speaker. But I wouldn't for a minute try to say that we shouldn't focus on local skills. I mean, I believe in keeping resources local and circulating the resource, well-being and work and activity in our local community. So I totally am in sympathy with that. So he's not there as an alternative to our local folks. He's just helping us, with a little bit more technical and marketing expertise on some of this. Second thing, so your second point was, so can you just remind me what it was, Jennifer?
Yeah, I wondered in terms of, was this just for a point of reference, or was it something that there was an anticipation that we would build on it, or I was curious as to what the expectation was. I loved the background of it, and I apologize if it comes off as not appreciative, but it was just for context for me as a newbie.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, we like I said, we have come into being, and we're doing our thing as spark plugs to try and get things moving. And we're not saying that anything that we come up with has to be implemented by people, and that people can't come up with a lot of different creative ideas that may be totally different than what we propose. This is totally malleable from my perspective. Others on the initiating committee may not agree, but that's my perspective. So it's just, we wanted to stimulate your imagination a little bit and show you the work that we've been done. Some people have suggested that not a lot of work has been done over the last 2 years. And we wanted to show that actually quite a lot of work has been done, including fundraising, including designing things, including getting a lot of people involved and excited. So it's just to highlight that. Does that answer your question?
It does. And again, I appreciate very much the background and the time that you put into it. And it was really helpful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd like to add that what's presented here is the work of a lot of people all over Ann Arbor that have been engaged with this question in putting ideas together. And Robert has been helpful in drawing it into some sort of a coherent form. But there are a lot of people working on it. That is what this initiating committee is about, that was recognized by the city council as a community group with authority and their presence in carrying this forth on the ground. And whether this Council of the Commons also sees itself as a working group on the ground, we still have to see how this develops. But this is a report, as it were, from the initiating committee that's been recognized as a partner in this, in a sense, the way the Downtown Citizens Advisory Committee is a partner with the DDA and gives a regular report to the DDA on what's going on the ground among people working on the different committees and so on, that we are about the gardens and about the kids and so on. So there are a lot of stuff that is going on that we want to put before all of us and see how we bring it all together and take it to its next steps. If the initiating committee continues to function.
Hi, everybody. I got kicked out of the meeting somehow, and so did Tom and Councilmember Hayner to do. So I'm glad that, okay. Yeah, all of the city folks, it seems like. So Jeff, I'm glad that you were made co-host so you could carry on with the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with our city laptops, because not only did I get kicked out, mine rebooted.
Oh, it did. Oh,
yeah, like
geez.
maybe IT was doing some kind of update or something. So.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that the meeting was able to.
Did I miss anything?
The whole presentation. Oh, no.
No, I caught most of it. So right at 9, it just shuffled me right out. So.
Yeah, me too. And I was worried that it was a Zoom thing, but I think it must have been a city thing. But we'll look into that. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
There was a motion to descend into anarchy, but it did not carry.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. I'm glad you pulled yourself back together again then. Frank, did you have something?
I just want to, I guess, echo both Jeff and Alan. I think Robert is a very talented gentleman. He's got a lot of experience in Ann Arbor. He's passionate about this project. But he's, if we have other people to bring to the table through Jennifer's efforts, this is the time to bring forth ways to accelerate the process of establishing the park and commons. And it's one data point, but I've been very impressed by what Robert has brought to the conversation. He's really stimulated. Once you get to just to see some visuals, even though they're not meant to be, here's the plan, folks. It's not that at all. It's let's begin to visualize what's possible on admittedly a very challenging site. There's no two ways about it, but there are many examples across the country where successful parks have been put on top of parking structures. So that's my little comment, I guess, on that.
Thank you. Alice, you have your hand up? Oh, you're muted. Alice, you're muted.
I don't know if he's commenting.
I appreciate hearing from Robert Black, but I hope that everyone did hear the part he was talking about, which I think is probably our best first chance to make something come forward, and that is to establish the program. And that does not mean an activity or, oops, my battery's running low, an activity or an event. It means knowing what the parameters are of our space, what the adjacencies are, what the 3D use patterns are, to understand that there is an underground space below, that there are difficult transitions between Liberty Plaza, and we need to get a grasp on those and what the legal and social and economic parameters are, and how we can overcome the barriers, and what we can take advantage of. I think that program part may have been more familiar as an activity or as an event, but the program, in terms of architects speaking, means what the elements are, and mostly the physical elements that allow the events to happen. So I just wanted to throw that in there, and hope we can finish up pretty soon.
Thank you. Yeah, we will. But Camilla, you have your hand raised. Let's hear from you.
Yep, thank you. I'll keep it brief. I just want to echo what Jennifer said, since not everybody was on the call then, and also echo what Alice has been saying. I understand that we should be acknowledging what has already occurred, all of the work, the hard work that people have done so far, but I do feel like we've skipped a few steps, and maybe that's on my end, just being a newbie here, but I want to echo what Jennifer has been saying about agreeing on a system for like how we acknowledge recommendations before we have presentations like this. Yeah.
And then Alice, did you have something more, or is
Oh,
your
no.
hand? Okay.
I keep hitting the lower hand and then an upper raise hand.
That's all right. This is just, that's all par for the course in this Zoom world. Okay, well, since it is 1/4 and Alice's battery is running low on her computer, and we did say that we did want to try to keep these meetings, you know, at a set time, I say we move on. The next thing that we had on our agenda is really to talk about next steps. So we know that we have some work to do to figure out about the budget. So Tom, you and I can do our homework on that and come back to the group next time on that. But for the agenda next meeting, do you want to carry on this discussion about how the group moves forward in terms of starting to think about the programming? Do you want to do something like a work plan? I'm just wondering what you want to, maybe just throw out some thoughts about the next agenda. Adam and I will work together to actually put together the agenda and refine it. But if people want to throw thoughts out there right now, then I think that would be helpful for us to move along. Yes, Councilmember Hayner.
Thanks. Would it be beneficial for us to have a very brief presentation and then space for a conversation reviewing the task force report and recommendations? Maybe that would be something we could have on the next. You said the other thing. I had my list for possible agenda items to send to our chair, and you, Heather, was, you know, whatever the budget concerns were, and possibly review the task force report, which kind of set the stage, and then the list of tasks that was referred to, which you also mentioned. And I think what Alice was saying about the language that she used, like an architect's language versus whatever, like, so we understand, like, when some people think of programming and it's like, hey, there's going to be a band on Tuesday and there's going to be this on Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah, it's different, right? And so yeah,
Yeah.
we just have to come to a set of common terms that we can use to describe the things we're talking about. So I don't know, not a formal glossary necessarily, but maybe an informal glossary might help. So I know I had to learn a lot of stuff about parks and how they talked about that when I got on PAC. So something like that might help out a lot also.
Well, Robert has put together a lot of this programming in the terms that Alice described that we didn't put into our initial presentation there that will circulate. And I think it would be useful to look at that material. People can decide, well, we don't want to see it, but it's actually carrying forward the adjacencies and the limitations of the space and the opportunities of the space. So I think it's worth to continue that line of presentation as well as everything else.
Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, I was just gonna concur with what Councilmember Hayner said in terms of probably starting with a little bit of a reminder of what the task force report, where sort of the last group left off, would be a good starting place. And then yes, around the idea of kind of what are the program, in the sense that Alice Ralph is referencing, in terms of, you know, the space and what our parameters are, because I think that's going to be really important in terms of the thinking about budget and what our needs are there.
Mm-hmm. Frank, you had your hand up.
Yes, I think the first move that needs to be taken for practical purposes and as a signal to the community, we have to get those cars off the parking lot. We can't do anything, you know, we can have the best program going forward, but we need to signal the community that we are in motion. And so I'd like to have the question of removing the parking on the next meeting agenda.
And Sarah, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. A couple things. So I would also appreciate, I think it's and I will say I do appreciate the urgency of this, and I know we only meet once a month, and it would be great to see something actually happen on this side. I don't want to just be talking about it for months and months and months, but I think it would be helpful to have that presentation of background and see where the task force left off. And maybe we could start to create some sort of work plan if there's time for that at the next meeting, potentially even talking about subcommittees, which could make this process, be a little more expedient. The other thing I wanted to mention, I noticed this in the Q&A as well, and I know Alan and Jeff, I think both brought up the idea of having an Indigenous person serve on this. I think it would also be worth, if we were to expand membership, to have a representative from the Black community on here. Black people have really complicated history with public space, and I think us having that perspective would be really valuable. If it's not possible to expand the group, or we don't get we need to do something to make sure that we're talking to as diverse of people as possible, but I think we really need to prioritize the Black community.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay, any other thoughts about what to talk about at the next meeting or subsequent meetings? Yes, Stephen.
Just don't want to lose, as the lawyer, I feel compelled to say, don't lose sight of the bylaws. If people could look at those and come back with their feedback, how much, if any, we want to change on that, because ultimately that's the first building block. We, as a body, we need to have the bylaws and ground rules of how we operate before we start stepping into these action items.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. And I'll send out the ground rules as well. And then also maintain the focus on what was set up by council about the group's purpose. Okay, any other thoughts before we move on?
Well, I do hope that Tom will carry forward. The city council has already directed that the cars be taken off, and that that is really the first step in saying that this now has become a place that is open for creativity and development. That was in the resolution that recognized for accelerating the development and recognized the initiating committee as a community factor in bringing this forward. So I just encourage you, Tom, to get together with the DDA that is slow to move on this, and it should be done.
And that's something we'll add to a future agenda to talk about. I know that's a pretty complex situation, so I think it'll be good to dive into that when we have a lot more time to talk about the complexity behind that and how that might happen. Okay, yes, Sarah.
Just one more quick question. I really liked Alan's idea at the very beginning of the meeting of gathering and being able to see and walk the space. I don't know if there's issues with us gathering as a body and counts as a quorum, whatever. I don't, if we were all together and we'd have to notice it or anything like that.
We would, yeah, we would have to notice it so that the public could attend if they wanted to. So if that is something that you want to do, we can arrange it. We just have to, I think we can arrange it. But we would have to notice it properly. So there would have to, be out of ways to be able to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could look at between the April and May meetings potentially, since we just moved it up a week for ourselves anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, I'll have to make a big confession here. I have never been in the underground parking lot.
It's nice.
It is. Yeah, it's a very nice parking structure.
Right, and it started out as sort of a protest, private protest. I was never going to set foot in there, but it is also become a reminder that we need to look at this in a 3D way, and whether we do that by familiarizing ourselves with it on foot, or that we have a reference that is a digital version of the entire site, the topo, all of that stuff. That I think is what Robert Black was talking about, so that we know we have a feel for the space, we have the feel for what comes into it and what goes out of it, and how you get there. And we will learn a lot, but I think it's better to learn something before we get started. and have something to stand on, so to speak. It's hard to realize there's like 14 feet of difference between one side of the site and the other. You know, you don't realize that there's a slope. You don't realize how big a gap the entrances to the parking lot is. You know, those they are big gaps. How many, you know, the intrusion of the glass enclosures at the exit of the stairwells. You know, these are things that we really need to familiarize ourselves with, because they can be inspiring as well as something that we have to get over. So I got myself plugged in, so I can't wave at you, but that's what I wanted to say is there are many ways for us to get started in a tangible way, and then we can really get creative with the way we get it done.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayner, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I sorry to talk again because I know it's getting late. So just briefly, a couple of things floated by us about OMA where Alan, I saw your email about, we had a conversation about on council, we can say something to everyone on council, but we're not supposed to reply all, because then that constitutes a discussion. If everyone is let in on that discussion, that reply all. And so I don't think it's, and maybe Mr. Crawford or Heather, you can clear this up, that it's not that if, hey, I found a really great thing online, I'd love everybody to see about Commonings. I can send that to everybody. Is that correct? But you don't want to say, here's how I feel about it. You know, Jeff says, here's how I feel about it to everyone. And then Steven says, and so on and so on. And that's all of a sudden we're having a conversation offline. It's an OMA violation. So I don't think it's meant to prevent us from sharing with the group, but responding to the group is way out. Just like we couldn't all show up and walk around all at once, but we certainly would be free to, between now and the next meeting, I encourage everyone to go down there and walk around the block and do whatever. So we're prepared, even in small groups that don't constitute a quorum, Rita, meet me down there kind of thing. And I think that's always allowed too, right? Under OMA, that we are not prohibited from discussing and moving our ideas forward between meetings.
Yeah, I think there's also an opportunity for our website, our commission website, or somehow to be able to accumulate public input and other things that we want to share with ourselves. Anything that we share among us, if we have to do it publicly, it should be accessible to the public. Like a presentation that Jeff did a few minutes ago, why not put that on our website? Why not? With the caveat that it shows where it comes from and when it was presented and that kind of thing. I think we need a repository for these ideas.
Heather, that we did that for the task force. Is that something that we're allowed to do for us?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Facilitate? Okay.
Yeah, my preference, like with the example with the presentation, my preference is that if you want something to be discussed at a meeting, get it to me, or at least give me the heads up that it's coming ahead of time so that I can attach it to the agenda. Because what was a little uncomfortable for me with that is that being sent out to the group beforehand is that the public didn't have a chance to see it at the same time that you did. So that's what we want, is that the public is seeing things at the same time you are, basically. So, just make sure, we get things out ahead of time and I can put it on the agenda. And then I can post things onto the website as well. As far as, sending things out through email, I would just emphasize being very, very cautious about that, because there's this gray area of whether you're deliberating or, making, definitely don't make decisions. You're not supposed to deliberate. If you are putting things out there saying, hey, this seems like a great idea, that I think could maybe be deliberation. So I just would be really, really cautious about doing that. So as much as you can, just bring things to the meeting. We want everything to be in front of the public as much as possible, especially with the history of this project, which we know has been controversial. And if you do have a question about something, check with me first, and I can check with the clerk if it's, if it is kind of this gray area thing, but you do want to get information out.
I just add on to that. Another benefit of having things go through Heather is that our inboxes get filled. And so if Heather's the one that is sending something to us, it's easy to search for her name and find out make sure we don't lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope people will look at the initiating committee website, AnnArborCommunityCommons.org. There's a lot of information there of the stuff that we've been doing so far. It's a very good website, and we're getting it together.
Okay, well, we are coming on 9:30, which isn't too bad, but I think that brings us to the close of our meeting. Sorry, I lost my agenda here.
Rita.
Oh, Rita.
Yeah, this is just really fast. I just want to echo the suggestion to walk the space and spend some time thinking. One other thing I would like to bring up, because I think there's some feeling on my part, and I think many other people, that would be really, really nice to work on some kind of temporary approach to using the space. And within that, I would like to have it have guidance with respect to our context of COVID, so that we have, whatever we might develop, that we have some guidance as to how people come together in any grouping.
Yeah, my understanding, just to answer you real quickly, right now, my understanding is that things go through the normal procedure of requesting use for the space, which there is a process in place for that, and that nothing's really happening right now because of COVID. Nothing's really getting approved for any kind of gatherings, but that'll, open up as time marches on.
It could reverse too, so it's best to keep up with what is going on.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a proposal in for activity on Earth Day within the accepted guidelines that the governor has laid out.
My guess is that, I mean, you'll find out, but I guess my guess is that we're not going to be allowing for any kind of gatherings on the space just yet. So, all right, with that, any other thoughts, any other final comments that people want to share? Yes, Councilmember Hayner.
Just speaking to what you just said there, I have people approach me and say, what is this space all about? What's going on there? Can we meet there? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I think one of the challenges that has, kind of beset this process the whole time is the unusual nature of it, where it was entered into the charter, the people spoke in a certain way, and it's part of the charter, and it encompasses the whole block and so on. And there's this idea that it's a commons, and that a commons is a very public thing. And so that it's, who's the city to tell a bunch of us we can't go have a picnic on Earth Day on that lot? There's going to be kind of that sort of notion that it's a public space and not under the auspices of the Washington County Health Department or whatever. And so I just throw that out there, that people have said, is this a common space? Is this a public space? Is this for me to use for this or that? And I don't have an answer for them yet, And so that's something that, as we look at how do we open this up to be used and to be public, we have to make that consideration that with the public, you get the best and the worst of everything that happens, And we just got to keep that in mind and hope for the best, and encourage people to use it in ways that are beneficial to the community. But I don't know what to say when somebody says, hey, can a bunch of us go down there and have a thing? And I'll say, yeah, go sign up with the DDA or whatever, whatever that process is. And we should make sure that process is known to people, and as part of our website, how do they get there? How do they sign up? How can they have their event there or whatever? So
it's definitely on the website already. And it's been a process that's been around for a while, but maybe it just needs to be broadcast more broadly now. It sounds like you're hearing from people that they don't know how to do it. And it's not just the DDA. It goes through a process of even members of the city too, to make sure that there's no fire hazard, whatever you're proposing for the space, that you're not going to cause a fire, or you're not going to, cause any sort of danger to anybody, and to deal and make sure that the cars are all off, that there's not going to be any car and people conflict right now, because it is, currently a parking lot still. So it's things like that. It's just kind of goes through that approval process to make sure that the event is going to be safe. So that's how it stands right now. Obviously we'll be looking at how we move forward and make this a more permanently public space. But that's the situation as it stands right now.
Well, the application has been put in exactly proper form to community services in plenty of time with appropriate insurance and all that lined up. So if there was any prohibition, we would have heard about it. And so I assume that this will go forward.
I think this is still, we are still under pandemic restrictions. In any public space, the CDC guidelines.
No more than 300 people at 2,000.
We're getting a little far afield from the agenda, I think.
Yeah, we have. And
yeah,
that's a private matter, actually.
Yeah, so we are at 9:36. Jeff, you have your hand up. Did you want one last?
Oh, thank you.
The final say.
I just wanted to make a quick shout out to Jennifer's interest with Spark, and that one of the uses of the space that we had in mind was allowing local businesses and local artists to have an opportunity to use the space to generate some income and, with temporary pop-up places and so forth. And so we want to show the value of the commons to local business and local artists and so forth.
Right. Okay, with that, I just want to thank everybody. Again, this is quite a group to be working with. Really great experience, and a lot of energy and enthusiasm. So I really appreciate your time tonight, and I'm looking forward to working with you going forward. Is there a movement to adjourn the meeting tonight?
Moved.
So moved.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Alice.
It doesn't require a second.
Doesn't require a second.
We meet next on April Fool's Day.
Oh,
yes.
all right.
Perfect.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.